I have worked in retail for about 4 years now. The strangest and creepiest thing that I ever witnessed was last year. I was working at a clothing store and usually worked around the men's department. It was around the holidays, and during that time we were very busy and stayed open for 24 hours just for the month. I ended up working quite a few late night shifts, which I didn't think I was going to like, but surprisingly they weren't that bad. Anyways, one night it was really late, probably 1 or 2 in the morning, and the store was dead. It was generally very quiet late at night except on weekends. At this time, there was literally no customers in the store and just a few of us working. I was folding clothes and straightening up near the men's sweaters when I barely heard the automatic doors open from the front of the store. I kept working, and a short while later I saw a tall man wearing a suit and tie walk into the men's section. I didn't pay much attention to how he looked. I just noticed he had short brown hair, and for one reason or another, I felt uncomfortable when he walked closer towards me. I have no explanation for why, because I usually enjoy talking to customers and helping them, but something just seemed off for some reason. I chalked it up to it being so late at night and one of my first times on the late night shift, so everything seemed a little bit different. The man walked around and browsed the clothing for a little while, but didn't really seem to be looking at any one thing in particular. I continued my work, and then saw the man walk into the fitting rooms, which were around the corner. That confused me a little bit, because it didn't look like he had any clothes in his hands that he was going to try on. About 10 minutes passed by, and I kept working. The whole time I was facing the wall where the fitting rooms were, just as I had been since before the man arrived. Pretty soon, 10 minutes turned into 20, and I became suspicious when the man never came out. I decided to go over and just look and see if he was alright. I wasn't going to actually go in his room, but I was planning just to look around and knock on the door. I walked down the hall where the 4 men's fitting rooms were. When I got into the hallway and looked around, I saw that every room door was wide open, and when I walked farther, I saw nobody was inside any of them. I was especially shocked because I know I would have seen if the man left, and there was no exit to the building down there. I looked around once more, and then went out to the front of the store and asked a coworker if she had seen the man leave at all. She said she hadn't seen any man in a suit at all. That really gave me the creeps, but the creepiest part was when we looked over the security footage and the man that I had seen didn't appear on it at all. For some information on this story, I'm a female, 26 years old, and live near a large city. This story occurred about a year ago at a pretty big mall. I had a lot of shopping that I needed to get done and went on a Saturday because it was my only day off from work. I knew the mall would be really busy, but I didn't have a choice, so I went shortly after they opened to be able to find parking. It didn't take long at all for the mall to become rather busy, and I went to several stores and bought a few things. I got a coffee after that, and as I was in line, a man came up to me and asked if he could buy me a drink. The man gave me a bad feeling as he got extremely close to me and talked sort of aggressively. It was overall slightly creepy. Still, it was nice for him to offer, so I smiled and told him no thanks. He seemed very disappointed in me, but then walked away without saying anything. After I left the coffee place back into the hallways of the mall, I saw the man sitting on a bench just staring at me. He had an unhappy look on his face, and as we made eye contact for a split second, it was an awkward feeling. I walked on by to my next store, and as I did, I noticed the man get up as I passed by. He started to walk behind me, but was a good 50 feet back, and the mall was very busy, so I wasn't too concerned. Eventually, I lost the man and didn't see him for a long time. But I would say about an hour later, when I was in a clothing store, I saw the man for a split second as he was walking behind an aisle about 20 feet away. Once again, we made eye contact for that brief second. I told myself that it was just a coincidence and forgot all about it. Finally, I finished my shopping and walked back to the side of the mall where my car was parked on. As I was approaching the exit, I felt the presence of someone walking behind me. I opened the door and held it open for them and assumed it was just a random person. But then I heard a voice say, "Thanks." It sounded familiar, and I turned around and once again saw the man standing behind me. I was sure at this point that it was no longer a coincidence that I kept seeing him. The man then asked me if I would be able to give him a ride. I told him no, I was sorry, but I couldn't do that, and I kept walking to my car. He kept walking right along with me as if he was going to go to my car with me anyways. It was very uncomfortable as he just walked with me. Looking back, I should have gone back inside the mall, but instead, I just kept walking to my car. Once I got there, I opened the driver's door and got inside. When I did, the man stood right next to me and watched me get in. As the door was opened, the man positioned himself in front of the door so that I couldn't close it. I got a terrible feeling and wasn't sure what to do. I decided to do the first thing that came to my mind. I told the man I would give him a ride after all, and then I waved him to get in on my passenger side. As I did, I started my engine. The man then unblocked my door and walked in front of my car to go to the passenger seat. As soon as the man was directly in front of my car, I slammed my driver's door shut and locked all the doors. Then I backed out quickly and drove away. I could hear the man yelling at me as I did. He gave chase very shortly on his feet, but I was able to get away. I work as a manager for an appliance and furniture store. I'm the main manager for the store, so it's my responsibility to lock up as well as open the store. One night several months ago, after a long day of work, the other 3 employees that were working went home, and I closed up. I stayed back to take care of some extra work for about an hour, and then I went to leave. By this time, it was probably about 10 p.m. I walked out of the front door, made sure it was locked, and began walking to my car, which was parked at the very back end of the parking lot where I always parked. But as I did, I noticed there was another car parked directly next to mine, which was extremely unusual. The large parking lot was completely empty other than the 2 cars, and as I got slightly closer, I noticed there were several people in the car, and they all seemed to be wearing ski masks on their faces. Obviously, this was alarming to me, and I immediately decided to go back in the store. I didn't know why these people were there or what they were doing, but I figured maybe they were just pulling a prank and I could wait them out and they would leave. I had only made it about 10 feet out of the store, so I turned around and walked back. I unlocked the door and went inside, then I locked it again. As I was doing so, I heard a car door open and shut from the parking lot. I didn't stop to look behind me, and instead I walked to the back room of the store. I was all alone in there, but we had a large glass wall across the front end of the store, so anyone could easily be able to see inside. As I sat in the small back room, it got very quiet. I listened closely to hear any kind of noise, but there was none. I sat back there for maybe 10 minutes or so, and then decided to go back out and see if they were gone yet. As I peeked around from the back room, I saw that there were about 3 or 4 men in masks, all standing at the front door, peeking inside. I quickly went back to the back room. I heard them try to open the door. I decided at that point it was time to call the police. I called and explained to them what was going on. They said they would arrive in 5 minutes, which made me feel pretty good. I kept hiding in the back, and after about a minute, I heard glass shattering in the front of the store. I realized they had broken in. It was a terrible feeling. And unfortunately, the back room that I was in had no door and was just behind a desk area. I ran to the back corner and hid behind a large couch that we had back there. The back room was fairly messy, so I was hoping I wouldn't be seen. I heard movements in the front end of the store for a while, and then heard voices as well, but couldn't make out anything they were saying. As they moved around, I heard them getting closer and closer. My heart rate got extremely high, and I was trying my best not to make a sound. It felt like at least 10 minutes, but I have no idea how long it actually was. At last, I heard sirens approaching. I heard the men leaving the store as the sirens got extremely close, and waited until I was sure police were inside before I left the back room. When I did, I saw several police inside the store and more police outside who had caught the men. The store was closed for the next day, and we had to get our large front window replaced, but I feel very good with how things turned out. This happened roughly 15 years ago. I was a little boy at the time, probably 8 years old. I went to Walmart one day with my mother. I remember back then my mother would always take what felt like forever to do her shopping. Either that or I was just really impatient. I would always go to the toy aisle or the video game section and look at what they had while she shopped. So on this day, I went over to the video games and looked at them for a good 10 to 20 minutes. I was looking for the new Madden game because I was going to try to convince my mom to buy it for me, but when I looked, they didn't have any for my gaming system. At that point, a Walmart worker came up to me and asked me if I wanted to look at the new Madden. I told him yes, and he said they had a bunch in the back and they needed to restock. He then offered to get one for me. I told him yes, and then the man smiled and said that I could go back and get it with him. He said, "I bet you've never seen the back rooms of Walmart before." He was correct when he said that, and being a little kid, I was always curious as to what was behind the doors that we were never allowed to go in. The man told me to follow him into the back, and I did. We walked through the doors, and I saw the back of the store, which was lots of crates and boxes. It was interesting to see, and the man kept telling me to follow him as I was looking around. I didn't see anybody else as we were back there, and we walked to the end of the room. There was a back door at the end which I could see was propped open with a brick. The man then suddenly grabbed my arm and opened the door. We went outside to the back of Walmart. I saw a van parked a few feet away, and the man unlocked it and told me to get inside. His tone of voice suddenly changed a lot since before. I was so surprised by this turn of events that I really didn't know what to do. It wasn't until the door to his van opened that I realized I was in a dangerous situation. I told the man I didn't want to get inside, and he gave me a little push. I said all right and started to get into the van. When I did, the man let go of my arm, and as soon as his firm grip was gone, I guess I went into fight or flight response or something like that, because without even really thinking, I just took off and started sprinting away from the van. I had been known as a pretty fast kid, and the man didn't look very athletic, but I still ran as fast as I possibly could. I knew he would try to chase me, and he did. I didn't really know where I was going, so I decided to run back around to the front of the store. The man chased me until about halfway past the side of the building, and then I heard him slow down. I kept running at full speed, however, and didn't look back again until I was at the front of Walmart. I walked back inside the front entrance and quickly located my mother. I told her what had happened, and she went directly to the manager. The police ended up coming, and it turns out the man wasn't an employee at all. He had just worn a Walmart vest to make people think he worked there. After that experience, I stayed with my parents the whole time they shopped until I was probably 13 or 14 years old.